This episode of the All Automotive Podcast is brought to you by our friends at GeForce Automotive. GeForce Automotive is a certified service center through Auto Value. Want to make an appointment? Go to their website at www.geforceautomotive.net. Click on the banner that says Make an Appointment and make your appointment today. And now, the next episode of the All Automotive Podcast. All right, welcome back to another episode of the All Automotive Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Clausen, and today we're talking about vehicle documentation. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you go into the repair facility and you ask them to look at your car, what are you getting back from them when your car's done as far as documentation? And we had an issue this past week with a customer who she was having transmission troubles, and she brought her car to us, and it was towed there. And we diagnosed it, and it needed transmission work. And, she came in to pick up her vehicle, and I was talking with her, and I said, well, if you have documentation from this other repair facility, then you should be able to, should have something to fall back on, and you should be okay. Well, she told me that she's told them 3 different times that she's had trouble with this, and the last 2 times this particular repair facility was telling her that there wasn't anything wrong with her car. That's all fine and dandy, but if it wasn't documented and she doesn't have any documentation on the fact that they actually attempted to look at it, then, she doesn't have anything to go back on, and that's kind of really important. Whether your car is under any kind of warranty or not, whether it's under factory warranty, that is very big if you have a repeat concern that isn't duplicated. It's very important to have documented history of this so that you can fall back on that and say, hey, I was complaining about this while it was under warranty, and now it's not, and we're having an issue. So whether your vehicle's under factory warranty or an extended service contract, it all helps to have the proper documentation. So in that conversation with this particular customer, I was telling her that if you have your documentation, you should be good. And so the more information I was getting from her is that the vehicle was purchased off a lease. She wasn't the original owner of it. It had about 20,000 miles on it, and it was quote unquote certified through this particular manufacturer. And I'm just going to use the manufacturer so it's easier for everybody to understand. It was certified through Chrysler. So it had believe she told me that it was 100,000 miles. Her vehicle had 114,000 miles on it, and she was complaining that, obviously she was having transmission trouble, and she said she did complain about it during the factory or during that extended service contract time. So when they're certified, there's a different set of rules, I guess, when your vehicle is certified. And you have to see each manufacturer to find out what's covered. And this is where I'm telling you, if you go back and listen to my first ever episode about vehicle extended service contracts, the proper documentation is going to take you a long way with any kind of service contract or your factory warranty. So if you've had documented concerns under factory warranty, let's say, and then you're out of factory warranty, they're more inclined to help you out or pay for that repair partially, fully. It just depends on the situation. So that being said, you need to make sure that there's documentation when you walk out the door. It's really important. Whether they told you that there's nothing wrong with it, you make sure that when you're reading your slip, when you get it back, your invoice, that I documented that this transmission wasn't shifting correctly. It was hard shifting, whatever the concern is. You make sure that that's been documented and that they put a cause and potential correction there, whether or not they did anything or not. It's documented on that repair order. And it didn't sound like to me that that was the case. It was the case of she got her car back and they told her, well, we couldn't find anything wrong with your transmission. We drove it, blah, blah, blah. So I said, well, if you have your receipts, that would help you as well. And she was like, well, I think they're in the glove box. Okay, folks, this is the other thing too, is like, growing up, my dad was a big person about writing down what he did to his car and his preventative maintenance and so forth. Being in the military, that's one of the things that was taught in the military is, the preventative maintenance and documenting when these things were done so that you didn't have to remember. I can't remember stuff. That's why I type it into the computer, right? So in a shop like ours, we have a management system which will keep records on your specific VIN number, and that'll follow whoever you sell your car to. Your neighbor, they're going to see that we did a wheel bearing on it at 75,000 miles or whatever it is. So the documentation is really important. And it on your end, I know it's like keeping paper. It's 2023 and we should be able to have digital records, and a lot of us do. And we can send that to you in a digital form so that you have it, so there's not papers flying around in your glove box and you're not sifting through stuff. And it's pretty simple for us to pull that up and say, oh yeah, we did do that. Because let's say you have a problem with your wheel bearing and it's within the wheel bearing's warranty or our stated warranty to you on that. And we get documentation, we take care of it. It's that simple. If we don't know, if there's question of that, then we can look and see, well, we don't have any documentation on whether or not we've done this wheel bearing for you. Oh, well, you guys are the ones that done it. You're the only place I take my car. That's a statement that I hear quite often that a lot of times isn't the right statement for them to make because, yeah, somebody put a wheel bearing on it, but it wasn't us because we'd have no record of it. And that's not going to happen because we have a certain set of rules that we have to follow, and most repair facilities do, in particular, whatever state you're in. And we're in one of the toughest ones as far as what documentation we have to keep for our customers and for our own benefit as well. It only benefits you if you keep a copy of what's done so that you know what's done. I mean, it's not that bad. If it's just an oil change and you're coming in, you know what? Hey, we send text messages out. We send our vehicle evaluations out. You have that in a digital form or a PDF file that you can save on your phone, or we email it to you and it can just sit there in your email in the iCloud or in the cloud somewhere. You have it. We have it too, but we'll send it to you again. And say you come to us for all your oil changes. This documentation thing is really big. You're driving your vehicle and you have a catastrophic failure with the engine and it has to go back to the dealership, right? Not to an independent repair facility like us to fix it because your vehicle's under warranty through the manufacturer, and you take it to a drive-through place, or let's say me, or you're happy with our service with your other cars, so you bring your car to us for your oil changes on your vehicle that's under factory warranty. We have that documentation. We can just pull that up, send it to you as a PDF file, and then that particular place has the proper documentation so that they can move forward with fixing your car. It all helps. It all helps. All the information that we can retain and keep helps us in the future. Even if we do or don't have a problem, it's always nice, even when you're going to sell your car. Hey, I got all these records. I'll tell you a story about the car I bought. It was a number of years ago, and it's my 2007 Impala SS. It was a customer of mine who had it before me. And I believe he bought the car brand new. And when I bought this car from him, he went into his back room and come out and he says, here you go, Matt. Here's the file on the Impala. And his file was labeled Impala, and he had everything in there. It was all paper, which that's fine. It wasn't a big deal. I still have it. and I still referred to it because there was an issue I had with a replacement transmission that he had put in at a dealership, but it was way away from where we were. It's over 100 miles, and it didn't behoove either one of us to take it up there to have any kind of issue done. But because it was at a General Motors dealership, I was able to get the necessary things done that I needed to get done without having a bunch of hassle because I had that paperwork. So whether or not you want to save all these receipts into a file like he did in his file cabinet in his house, or you want to keep them digitally, or you trust the fact that the repair facility that you're taking it to has that documentation, then by all means, just let them have it. But the point I'm making with this particular person who had trouble with her transmission is that now she's outside of this 100,000 mile warranty, and she's wanting Chrysler to participate in this transmission repair because it obviously needed to be overhauled. It didn't go at all. I mean, we got it in the shop, but it wasn't like she was going to drive it home or to this dealership. So she had it towed away and towed to the Chrysler dealer that she bought it at. So she would be in a better position if she had all of her stuff in her hand that said, hey, this is what was going on when I complained about it when I was here. So the documentation for an extended service contract would be almost the same, if not, in fact, the same. So let's say your vehicle's not under any kind of factory warranty or a certified vehicle, and when you purchased your vehicle at 50,000 miles, you were sold an extended service contract. And that extended service contract goes to however many miles you purchased it for. Let's say it's a 48,000 mile contract. So you're almost to 98,000 miles. When it expires, because you bought it at 50, you add the 48, you get to 98. So you got 97,000 miles on it, and you're having trouble with your transmission. So if you've got documentation on, the repair facility's got documentation on doing a transmission service maintenance or any kind of transmission repair, it's going to make life a lot easier for all parties, especially with extended service contracts, because theoretically they're like insurance companies, and you're buying insurance on your vehicle that they're hoping, really in all aspects of it, they're hoping that you purchase this contract, that they're not going to have to pay out anything on it. And that's the gamble of what their business models are. And that's just a fact of it. So we as customers and repair facilities have to navigate their rules as far as it concerns to what we're doing and when. So it's 97,000 miles on it. We've got a transmission concern. It doesn't shift through all the gears. So most of these service contracts are going to want you to pull this vehicle in, diagnose it, and then we call them and tell them, okay, this is what's going on with it. And then they tell us what they would like us to do. And the majority of the time, they want us to tear the transmission out, tear it down to point of failure, which means we take it all apart and have all these pieces laying out on a bench, and we go, this part right here, the planetary gear set, is what's failed. Okay, so we'll send an adjuster out to take a look at it. So in the meantime, that takes 24 to 48 hours, sometimes, 3 days for us to get an adjuster to come out so that we can point to the part on the bench and say, this is what's broken. So again, these are the navigation things that I have to do in order to get your vehicle repaired. So one of the things that the adjuster is going to want to look at too, is if there's any service history. Has this customer been coming to you for a long time? Yep, he sure has. And then the next question is going to be, well, have they serviced or done any kind of maintenance work to the transmission? Change the fluid, any service recommendations, that kind of thing. Yep, we did a transmission service back on such and such date at 70,000 miles. She'd had the vehicle 20,000 miles, and we did transmission fluid flush and refill. Didn't have a serviceable filter or pan that we had to remove. It was drain and fill maintenance. That simple, easy, done. And we've got record of that. Okay, great. All right. So what's the recommended repair? So we tell them what the recommended repair is, either overhaul it or replace it as a unit, and we go from there. That particular adjuster, usually they're independent adjusters that work for several different companies. They take all their pictures they need to take, and then they head out the door. So within that rest of that afternoon or day, within 24 hours, we get a approval or a denial based on all of that information. So it's like, again, it's important to keep all of your records, whether we have it or not, and whether we're the repair facility that was recommended by their friend, and this is the first time they've come in here and we have nothing. So think about that too. You want to keep some of that stuff so that in the event that you have to take it to a place where your friend recommends, hey, wouldn't you go there if your friend recommends them and they've gotten great service from them, or completely out of the way to go 50 miles or 100 miles to where I bought my car to get the service done. I've dealt with these guys before and this is what I want to do. Or getting back to my first statement is now we're the ones that have to look at it and we're the ones that tore it down. But this is the first time this vehicle's been in here. So now our answer to that other question is no, we don't have any information on whether it was serviced or not. We'll back up the bus and we'll call the customer and find out if they've got any maintenance records. But this is okay. I'll take all this stuff, yada, yada. And then the adjuster still leaves without that information. So it's like you're going to court and you've got to plead your case or build your case, and the more information, the more stuff that you have, and the better off you are. So they leave, and then most likely the adjuster or that insurance company or extended service contract company would call us and say, hey, did the customer provide you with any documentation? Yes, they can. We scan all that stuff to a PDF file. We send it off if you have it. If you don't have it, then we're waiting. And most of the time you need your car, right? You need your car back. So it's important to have this stuff readily available. And I recommend this to everyone, whether you want to do it or not. Keep the stuff in an envelope in the glove box. It's there. It's readily available. Just, take like a regular size envelope, fold the thing in thirds and stuff it in there. If you want a manila envelope, something that obviously would fit in your glove box or somewhere, and you want to keep it in a place to where if we're not the place that you take your car to all the time, we aren't going to have your records. And hey, all that stuff's in the glove box. It's in the envelope that says receipts. Okay, cool. We grab that, filter through there, find your transmission thing, scan it to a PDF file, send it off. We're in great shape now because now we've got the documentation that we needed that we didn't have, and we're in better shape. So then they call back and they tell us, okay, you're approved to overhaul the transmission, move forward, everything's good. We got a claim number. Okay, so then we call you back and tell you, good news, this is what they authorized us to do. Any bad news, if there is any, most likely it's a deductible or differences in the parts pricing, or if that happens, then we move forward with that. But again, going back to the documentation part of it is whether or not you come to us as a repair facility from the word go, we're not going to have that information if you don't. Even if and I don't take any offense to that really, because it's like, I know there's all kinds of different repair facilities out there and we all are trying to do the same thing, is help our customers. And one of the things that we do to help our customers is keep all that stuff on file. So it's really important to have all that documentation. So I'll be curious to find out what the determination is once it gets to that dealership, being 14-ish thousand miles out of their warranty with her concerns documented. Because, as a service manager at a GM dealer back in my day, if we had documented concerns under the factory warranty, then, it obviously makes our case better. And if you make sure that what's on that repair order when they give it back to you, if it's not on there and you were complaining of the transmission and I'll just have the tech drive it and there's a lot of things on our end that, technicians have to be paid. And if they're not compensated, I'm not going to drive your car and check it for a transmission concern if I'm not going to get paid for that. So if it's not documented on that repair order, then you need to go back in there and ask them to document that. If somebody actually drove your car and physically said, if one of their technicians drove your car and physically said, hey, I'm not getting it to do it, I drove it this far, that needs to be on my repair order before I leave. Because most people that I've dealt with have had some issues like this, and they come back and it's like, see, they're knocking on your counter. Hey, man, I told you that there was something wrong with this. And now, I'm in this predicament because it's 14,000 miles out of warranty. And I was complaining about this before my warranty expired. So what are you guys going to do? So see, this puts us all in a bad situation because either, let's say devil's advocate, there was an issue before it was out of factory warranty and it got missed. It happens. Don't freak out. It's something that happens. And, hopefully she gets the Chrysler dealer or Chrysler to do something for her. I don't know that it's going to get fixed completely and for no cost to her, but we'll see. Like I said, I'm curious to see what the determination will be once they get it diagnosed. And I'll be curious to see if in fact that she actually has to pay for that, or we actually get a call back that says, well, they wouldn't do anything for me. And now, can you guys help me out? And obviously we would, and do everything we could for her as far as, keeping the cost where it needs to be and try to help out as much as possible. Cause in her situation is that, she's a single mother now and she's got priorities, which are not spending $5,000 or whatever it was to repair her transmission, overhaul her transmission. And she's like, well, now, I wasn't expecting $5,000. It's tough enough if I was married and had two incomes, but I only got my income, and that's not going to cut it with this one. But like I said, I'd be curious to see what happens with that. And I most certainly would let everyone know how that comes out. So again, just really important, just keep your documentation up to date, and that would be that. If whether or not it's a PDF file or you keep the actual papers, you keep a file in the file cabinet in your house. I know a lot of people that do that, and most people would put their receipts and so forth inside the car. And, that way we're not calling all over town trying to find out if you got your oil change done, if you've got an engine issue. And we deal with this all the time because we have the opportunity to work with several different service contract companies. And, in my experience, this is how they operate, and that's how they operate. And they, tear it down to point of failure. We got to have somebody come out and take a look at it so that they know that we're not trying to pull the wool over their eyes and say, yeah, it needs a transmission, just authorize it so we can put it in. No, that is not the way that we do business, obviously. And that is just something that, all of these companies are making us do. And it's not us. Let me just tell you that it's not just us. We have to follow their rules if they're going to pay for it. So that's one of the fact of life of owning a repair facility, ladies and gentlemen. It's dealing with the extended service contract companies and all the hoops that we have to jump through for them. So if you want more information on vehicle extended service contracts and what to expect or not expect if you're dealing with that, you can click on my podcast and go back to my first ever episode, Vehicle Extended Warranties, and take a listen. I had a lot of good information on that episode that I really, really think that you would get a lot of value with. And, one of those things I talked about in there was obviously this documentation. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up was the documentation in today's episode, and let you know that don't just walk out of there and fold that thing up and stick it in your back pocket or in your pocketbook or your purse. And, if they're giving something to you digitally, look at it. Make sure they documented all your concerns, because if there's a concern where, it happens. there's a concern of yours that didn't get addressed and it's not on that paperwork, then you turn right around and walk back in there and say, hey, man, I was complaining about this and you didn't document it. And if it's an oversight on our part, hey, that's really quick. We can just get into your receipt, document the concern, and put it on there and resend you that invoice. It's not a huge issue if it was an oversight on the service advisor's part. But that's where we take the time to actively listen to what you're talking about and what you want us to look at. Because if we miss something, if you told us the transmission doesn't shift right, and sometimes I come to a stop and it doesn't go, or it slips, or whatever it is, and that's not on your receipt, then that's important for us to, hey, you guys didn't do this. So if it's something that we didn't do, that's easy enough to address. We can just either reschedule you, or we can have a technician drive it right then. Or you can go for a ride with us and show us. That helps out too. That helps out a lot. So one of the things that you can do when you come into the repair facility is have all this information. If it's something that's intermittent, that's really kind of crazy that happens, we have video cameras on our phones. It's like, your math teacher said, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket. Okay, you're not going to have a video camera in your pocket when you grow old, right? Well, we do. So do it. Put it, we've actually had customers say, look, I've got a video of it. Check it out. This is when it makes the noise. Ting, 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 ting. When I go around the corner, turning left on a rainy day or whatever it is. And don't get yourself into an accident by recording the noise that it's making when you're trying to turn. I don't recommend doing that, obviously, for safety reasons. Don't get yourself into an accident because you're trying to record the weird thing that your car does on certain days. But I am more than willing to go for a ride with you to find out this noise, or have you drive or have me drive. And I do this all the time. That's one of my job duties, is to check and make sure that the vehicles that we repaired are repaired correctly. Because it doesn't do anybody any good if you give your car back to you and it's still doing the same thing. So in the defense of the dealership just a little bit, and, she kept putting that back on the dealership, is, well, I kept telling him. And I was just like, okay, well, if you did, then it's on your paperwork. And in their defense a little bit, sometimes we can't make it do what you're doing. We can't drive your car 50 miles because, that takes time. That's going to take over an hour for us to drive at 50 miles, whether it's down the highway or around town. Or if it comes to that, then yes, you may leave your vehicle with us and say it takes until this long for this to start happening. When I was saying take a video of what's going on, pay attention to the timeline. Have good information for us when you come in. One or two, well, it makes a noise when I turn. Okay. And we're trained to ask the probing questions and get all the information that we can. And it's also helpful if you've taken it 3 other places for this problem, and now you're bringing it to us for the same problem because the 2 other places didn't fix it. So that's helpful too. And if parts were changed and you got receipts and invoices from there, that's helpful as well. It all helps. The documentation part, it all falls back on the documentation and how you handle that and how you keep that. Don't just think that we're all going to know and we all talk to each other, because a lot of us don't. Some of us do, some of us don't. And the more information that you have to help us get your car fixed, that helps us help you. Like Jerry Maguire. Help me help you. Because that's all we're trying to do, is help you keep your car on the road and moving forward. So documentation. So again, go back to that, my first podcast, vehicle extended warranties. Take a listen to it. It's great. I would recommend that for anybody that's got an extended service contract and wants to know what documentation you need to keep and so forth. It's all, I spent a few minutes on talking about that. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of the All Automotive Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Clausen, and I really appreciate you listening to this episode on proper documentation. There's 3 things that I want you to know. Did they give it to you? Do you have it? And do you know where it is? The proper documentation. Again, go back to my first episode on vehicle extended service contracts. I touch on the proper documentation. It's a good episode. You should go listen to it. Just a reminder, we're on all major podcast platforms: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, and Google. Until next time, I'm Matt Clausen saying, keep that greasy side down.